To welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This is the new Monday edition. This podcast is brought to you by the Draft Professors, and today the Draft Professors joining us are Drew Collins and Hank. Guys, it is great to see you on Monday night. Hank, what is the good word in college football for you right now?
Well, Washington won their bowl game against Boise State in a dominant way, but Washington is currently competing for the soccer championship of the entire NCAA. So there's about 10 minutes left in that game, but Washington's they're heading in the right direction about every sport possible.
Cool. And Drew, what's going on in your football world right now?
I'm just excited for the college football playoffs starting this weekend. My team's KU, not a great season. Nebraska had a decent season until it all came off, and North Texas was my one hope, but they didn't make it. But I'm hoping to see some close games. I'm excited for some of the matchups this weekend, and I'm excited to see the players declaring for the Senior Bowls, for the draft. I think that's been a fun storyline to watch.
Well, this is the first podcast that Drew and Hank have done together. Hank was doing Mondays, Drew was doing Sundays, and we're kind of converging, and this is going to be the Monday lineup for the foreseeable future with a few guests lined up. I think Alex from Hail Mary Sports is going to be on in January. But right now, we're just going to kind of get things warmed up with doing some mock drafts. Drew is a Saints fan. Hank is a Vikings fan. And we are going to use the Draft Professor Simulator to do some mock drafts, and we're going to talk about what some of the functionality is. So, a couple things about the Draft Professor Simulator. It's interactive. That means the players that Hank picks in a mock draft for the Vikings now, we may see the Vikings take if I go and do a mock draft for Buffalo later. So everything within the simulator is setting up for the next person that does mock drafts on the simulator. So we're going to do the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to turn on this button right here called the First Round Fanatic Challenge. And Hank, Drew, and I are going to do 5 one-round drafts for Minnesota. So, Hank, what do you see as Minnesota's primary needs on the roster right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you asked me this question like 3 weeks ago, I'd probably say quarterback, but JJ McCarthy's had 2 decent enough starts back-to-back weeks. He looked good against the Cowboys. I would definitely say running back is up there. Aaron Jones isn't getting any younger, and Jordan Mason is a fine rotational guy, but he's also kind of pushing 30, which for running back isn't great. I would say a third wide receiver could be a sneaky need. Ty Felton hasn't worked out, and Jalen Naylor could definitely be improved upon, even though him and JJ have a great connection. I think tight end later, probably not round 1. I could see them going Kenyon Sadiq. Like, I like TJ, but again, another guy who's just getting old, and like you can tell he's getting slower. But I think especially on defense, you're really looking at probably, I mean, corner for sure. Just you need a guy who can match with Byron Murphy, and I would say as well as safety, because I mean Metellus isn't really a safety; he can play everywhere, and Harrison Smith is probably done after this year. So definitely probably just, I would say defensive backs and running back are probably the biggest needs for Minnesota.
Okay, so the draft went Ruben Bain, Fernando Mendoza, Reese, Moore, Tate, Maui Noah, Downs to the Saints, Delane, Woods, Lomu, Bailey. So any thoughts on, for example, the corner board, if you're looking at Terrell or McCoy? Drew, do you have Terrell or McCoy graded high enough to take 12th overall?
Talent-wise, McCoy is easily a top 12 pick, but it's just an all evaluate his injury. Do you think his health will be good enough? Personally, I do think he's young enough that he will develop, so I would be comfortable taking, I'd say, Jermon McCoy Obviously, it's going to be a ton of the pre-draft evaluation for him. At the combine, you're going to see countless teams going on his medical history, and you're going to see a lot of news about that. But I feel comfortable taking McCoy top 12. Avion Terrell is an interesting one for me. I'm personally not quite as high on him. I still like him a lot as a player, and I do think he will be a first-round pick. But I don't know if I'd say he's a top 12 pick right now. If you're a cornerback needy team, he would be decent value. But as for me right now, I wouldn't have him above McCoy.
Okay, Hank, Terrell and McCoy 12th overall, and do you think any other corner should enter the conversation at 12th overall?
Yeah, I think McCoy definitely. Even with the injury, he's still my CB1. I still think that he is by far, if the best corner in this class, even with a bad ACL. He just plays so well in coverage, and he understands route concepts, and the amount of times that he blankets wide receivers is ridiculous. Now, I'd be a bit more worried about the ACL if he was this world breaker athlete before it, and all of a sudden he's gonna like lose this massive step. But I mean, he was a solid enough athlete, but I don't see it really affecting his play. He's so good technically. He has great ball skills. I think that 100% he should be in the conversation for probably a top 10 pick if his medicals come back clean. And then the other corner, I actually wouldn't put Avion Terrell in there. I would have thrown Keith Abney in there. I think he's a stud. I think maybe 12 is a little high. I think that 20 to 32 range is probably where I'd have him. But if they really want to get a corner and McCoy and Delane are gone, I think Keith Abney's the next best option.
Well, you see, and now, Hank, you just walked into the – okay, so the simulator immediately started a second mock draft. Bain, Moore, Reese, Downs, Woods. McCoy's off the board. Delane's off the board. The Vikings are picking 12th.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Keith Abney. You might think about that at 12th overall.
Yeah, I think a lot of testing has to come back well with him. But I would for sure consider Keith Abney top 15 with a decent enough combine, good interviews, good measurables.
Okay, so Drew, what players do you think? Let me rephrase it. What players do you have graded high enough that fit the Vikings team needs at 12?
Vikings team needs at 12. I first want to comment on Keith Abney because I do love him as a player. His movement skills, I just think are so good. He's so fluid, so smooth. And I definitely think he'd be in the conversation for a mid-first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the players that fit the Vikings needs. I mean, I think Jeremiah Love is an amazing prospect. I do really like a lot of his tape, and I do think he can be a game breaker. Then what do you say some of the other needs were? You said safety. I don't think you're going to see a safety outside of Caleb Downs go this high. Finneman's a great player. Jalen Kilgore's a great player, but none of them are in first round conversations right here, especially at pick 12. So then you said, what else after that?
I think like sneaky wide receiver 3, another wide receiver.
I mean, Carnell Tate then is very interesting. Tyson's interesting depending on all the medicals with him. How do you feel?
So
I don't know.
If Carnell Tate falls to 12, let me rephrase that, because Drew, I don't know that falling to 12 is the right term to use based upon the podcast you and me did on Saturday. Hank, where do you have Carnell Tate graded relative to the 12th overall pick?
Yep. Tate is my wide receiver 1 right now. But I mean, I think it's a difference of 0.1 with him and Mekhi Lemon. So I think that it really is just 1A, 1B with them. In terms of the Vikings, I would prefer Mekhi Lemon just based on fit and like a guy who can just separate at any level of the field and get open and catch the ball reliably. Just throw him in the slot, replace Jalen Naylor. Jordan Addison, you probably don't want to pay him. So, I mean, Mekhi Lemon, just in my opinion, would be the better wide receiver fit-wise for me.
Okay. And Drew, how high do you have Lemon graded relative to picking him 12th overall?
I mean, I think he's 100% deserving of that. Mekhi Lemon's my wide receiver 3, which I'm very high. I think there's 4 star receivers in this draft. I've got Jordan Tyson, Denzel Boston, Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate. So, I mean, I think Mekhi Lemon, with how twitchy he is, how well he can separate, I think he'd be a great selection. Yeah. I think he'd pair extremely well with Justin Jefferson, as you were saying.
Yeah. I also think that there's one more corner that I think I should have thrown out there, because if he tests well enough, he could definitely go top 20. That's Chris Johnson from San Diego State, especially being a smaller school guy. You could, I mean, we saw Quinyon Mitchell go first round, a few years ago. I'm not saying 12, but that's another guy like same range as Keith Abney for me, where he could definitely sneak into the higher parts of round one with a good combine, good interviews, good medicals.
The
I've
Senior Bowl is
heard
going to be
that
huge for
about
him.
Chris Johnson from others as well, that that they could see him going in round one.
Mm.
So with the first round challenge, the simulator immediately starts a third mock. Downs, Moore, Bain, Mendoza, Reese, Maui, Noah, Woods. It makes sure McCoy and Lemon, who are the picks, the first two mocks are off the board. So, like, for example, this one, Sonny Styles fell to 12. How do you feel about Sonny Styles at 12, Hank?
I mean, Sonny Styles was my second overall player in the class, grades wise. I think he's a stud. My two highest players in the class are both Ohio State linebackers. So that's just you rarely ever see that. But to the Vikings at 12, I mean, I'd be fine with it because I love him as a player. I think the situation that has to get talked about though is Jeremiah Love, because I think that's what everybody's gonna want at the end of the day, is get the guy who averages like 8 yards a carry, can put up 10 carries for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in college. People are going to look at that and just want him on the Vikings because he's an explosive playmaking machine. I do have a round one grade on him, which is better than I had in summer scouting. I just question his ability to move laterally sometimes, but other than that, he's a phenomenal prospect. So I think Jeremiah Love just has to be one of these picks. But I mean, I'd love Sonny Styles too. Sonny Styles would be great.
Okay, so we'll go Love here. So, Drew, where do you have Love on your board right now?
Jeremiah Love, I do also have him graded as a first round pick. I mean, I think he's right up there with some of the running backs we've seen in recent years, maybe even a little bit better of a prospect than Genti and all that was. I think he's just such a good athlete who can win in such a various amount of ways, super efficient. And I do think it's nice that at Notre Dame, he had a great partner. So he wasn't taking the bulk load of carries. He wasn't taking 30, 40 carries a game to worry about the wear and tear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for the fourth mock, the simulator makes sure that McCoy, Lemon, and Love are off the board. So if those are the three guys that the Vikings like, and those guys are gone before the pick, what are the offensive line needs of the Vikings, Hank?
Well, I mean, you're probably thinking center is probably the biggest need. I don't think there's a center you take though. They spent a lot of money on Will Fries and Ryan Kelly in the offseason, and they invested their pick into Donovan Jackson, and they still have Darisaw, Brian O'Neill. I mean, I guess maybe right tackle. I'm not really worried about the offensive line. They haven't really played great together, but it's also their first season together. But if I had to pick one, it'd be center, but there's just no center worth the 12th overall pick.
Okay. So you're not that high on Lulu.
I mean, I like him. He's probably my center 1 or 2, but not at 12.
Got it. So Drew, any thoughts on brainstorms for a player that fits the Vikings team needs if Lemon, Love, and McCoy are off the board at 12?
I mean, I think we talked about him just a little bit ago, but I think Sonny Styles, I really think he can be a high impact player on whatever team he goes to. His athleticism, his tackling is so good, his coverage ability that I'd feel comfortable taking him with a top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree for sure.
Okay. So we will do Sonny Styles as the 4th pick. And then for the 5th mock, Styles, Love, Lemon, and McCoy are off the board. What would the Vikings do? And Mansour, Delane, and Peter Woods dropped.
Yeah, I mean, we already experimented with corner, so I'm going to go away from that. If he's on the board, I didn't see. I'm assuming he is. Kenyon Sadiq, I would probably want to entertain here. I think he's an absolute weapon at tight end. I think he can line up in the slot. I think he can line up in line. He's just a joker of a player. He's a great blocker for his size, which is slightly undersized. I think Hawkinson is getting nothing but older and slower, and you're seeing that each week. some of the routes he runs are just very unserious nowadays. Like you can tell he's trying, but he just doesn't have it in him anymore. It's going to eventually be time to move on. Sadiq brings you a guy who can block and a weapon for
Okay.
McCarthy. It just makes sense to me.
Okay. And this is a great example. So I want everybody to observe that Sadiq, at the time we picked him, is the 29th overall player on the Vikings board. So we'll pick Sadiq. We'll finish the first round challenge. And you saw us pick McCoy, Lemon, Love, Styles, and Sadiq. Okay. So what the simulator ends up doing is every player you picked moved up. So I can't tell you how much they're going to move up. There's math there, and I'm not going to share the math live on a podcast. But if you scroll down to the Vikings board and you look at the player list, and if we look at where Sadiq is on the player list, he was 29th at the time that we took him. And if you look now, he's all the way up to 19th. So picking him once moved him up. If you want Sadiq to be the pick for Minnesota in round one when other users use the simulator, you need to do more mock drafts. So the more you do, the more they move up. So, Drew, you're ready to try one of these out for New Orleans?
Yep, Happy got a little practice one in on Saturday. Ready for this.
So what are your thoughts on the New Orleans roster?
I mean, I think it's definitely improved from what we thought it was at the start of the season. Going into the year, we thought quarterback would be a big need. Quarterback right now is off the table in early rounds. I mean, they could always grab a late one, but Tyler Shuck has played great these last couple of weeks and is well deserving of another year. So I'm not really even entertaining quarterback in the first round. I think that'd be one of the worst moves they could make right now. But I do think there's a lot of holes you could go. You could go into your offensive lineman. You could go a weapon for Shuck. You could go really anywhere defensively, honestly. I think they have good defensive players at every position, but they obviously could still be upgraded. So the Saints kind of have a wide open board. They could really go whoever they want.
Okay. So Hank, right now the Saints are picking 7th. The first round went Bain, Mendoza, Reese, Moore, Tate, Maui, Noah. So Hank, what players in your top 10 have not been drafted yet?
Downs for sure. I have to pull up my big board to see that. Downs is for sure in my top 10. And I think Peter Woods is in there, but I think other than that, there's no one unless there's someone further down.
Well, there would have
Because
only
I think
6
I
players
have
went off. You should have
yeah,
4
because
picks.
I have people that aren't going to declare probably in my top
got
10.
it.
So yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay, so Drew, if you're in this situation, if the first 6 picks went that way, who do you think is your best player for the Saints?
For me right now, I talked about it last podcast. DeMario Davis, Cam Jordan are getting older. Tyrann Matthews not on the roster anymore. I think Caleb Downs would be such a perfect fit. I think he'd be the leader of the defense for years to come. And he's just such a smart, such a great player in every asset of the game that I think he'd be a stellar pick for the Saints.
Okay, so you'll begin to notice a pattern or a trend. So Maui, Noah, Mendoza, Downs is off the board. Moore, Bain, Reese. So, Hank, for you right now, who is the best available player if those 6 players are off the board? Again, that was Maui, Noah, Mendoza, Downs, Moore, Bain, Reese.
With my board, it would be Sonny Styles, but like in terms of situation, I would probably go with one of the wide receivers at 7, just because it's Chris Olave, and then it's just not much. So Tyler Shuck, I think he has earned the chance at another year for sure, but you got to set him up for success, and that getting another wide receiver in there would be probably the most important thing for them to do.
And I think, I know from talking with Drew, he's not going to take Carnell Tate this high.
We're getting
Drew,
lower, so he's getting more in my range. But
Mhm.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, who is? I'd say. I mean, I'm kind of similar to Hank in this idea, but I do think Makai Lemon would be a better fit to pair with Chris Olave, and Devon Vele has really popped on in recent weeks as well. At the start of the year, he was absent after the Saints traded a fourth round pick from this offseason. But
Mhm.
in these past couple of weeks, he's been that middle of the field. I believe he's 6'5", 6'4", so he's that big contested catch threat that I think is kind of filled. So Makai Lemon, they just need someone who can create separation. I don't know if there's a better receiver at that in this class.
Mhm.
Okay. So Downs, Moore, Bain, Lemon, Mendoza, Reese are the first 6 picks. So Lemon and Downs are off the board. Drew, who's the best available for you right now?
For me, it has to be Peter Woods. I think I'm fully down with just building the Clemson defensive line for the Saints. You've already got Brian Brzee, who you spent a first round pick on a couple years ago. Pair him with Peter Woods, and I think you've got a very good defensive front. Because Peter Woods right now, I mean, him and Brian Brzee have had their stuff where they have undoubtedly so much talent, but they're dealing with getting double teamed on the interior really constantly while they're in college. Brzee's kind of flown under the radar. He hasn't had a huge breakout season, but he's been averaging around 5 sacks a year. He's been right around that range in recent seasons. So I think getting someone else who can be an impact player in the pass game and the run defense like Peter Woods would be a great add for the Saints.
Mhm.
Okay. And Hank, how high is Peter Woods on your board right now?
Yeah, Peter Woods is sitting very comfortably at number 9 on my board. I like basically what you said. I think that honestly, people are gonna look too into this year for him. And he's gonna be a stud in the NFL. I still think he could be argued as a blue chip player. I mean, it just kind of feels like Derek Stingley, in my opinion, where he was really good his freshman year, fine, good as fine, but then he just like slowly like regressed. I think he also had an injury, but I think that we just need to know that we understand from years before that Peter Woods is a very good player in college. Clemson this year was a dysfunctional mess. I think that Woods should still be a top 10 pick in the draft pretty easily.
Okay. So for the fourth, Downs, Lemon, and Woods are off the board. Men, Mendoza. Excuse me. Fernando Mendoza dropped. Saints are on the clock at 7. What do you do, Drew?
I mean, if Mendoza's there, I'm getting the phones out and I'm seeing if anyone wants to trade up for him. That's the first thing I'm doing. If he's there, I would love that. But I mean, I'm kind of in my mind now battling with 2 players of who the Saints should select. Because in the next one, I do think that either Ruben Bain or Arvel Reese are going to drop in. Not to spoil
Right.
anything, but they're going to be my selection, whichever one of them is there. So for me, it's kind of I didn't even see. So it's 3 players now. I just saw him, but Mansour Delane, the LSU cornerback, Francis Mauigoa for the guard, or Sonny Styles.
Mm.
I do really like all of them. Mauigoa, I mean, if the Saints do draft him, he's going to the interior. The Saints don't need a tackle right now. So it's if you draft a guard 7th, and I don't know if I would personally. So I think he's worth mentioning for the slot because I could see the Saints doing it. They haven't been afraid to invest in the offensive line early in recent years. I mean, they've drafted Kelvin Banks, Talia Sefuaga, they've drafted Trevor Penning, they've drafted Cesar Ruiz, all in the first round. So they've shown not being scared to do that, but I'm not going to go here. So I think either Mansour Delane or Sonny Styles would be my pick.
Okay. And Hank, between Delane and Styles, who do you have graded higher?
Sonny Styles by probably a few points, but yeah, I think Styles is just a difference maker. I think people aren't giving him enough credit, which is kind of crazy because most people have him top 15. But I think that everyone, when they watch Ohio State, are just so zoned in on Arvel Reese because he's a stud that they don't understand. They don't realize that the linebacker that plays right next to him is also like right there with being a prospect. I still think Reese is better, but it's a lot closer than people think.
It's crazy how when watching Ohio State's film, Sonny Styles is like the 3rd player you look at defensively.
Yeah, it's
Because a lot of people are
ridiculous.
looking at Arvel Reese and then Caleb Downs, and he just
Yeah,
goes so far under the radar with how good he
yeah,
is.
it's crazy. And it just depends on like what your team needs. Like Arvo Reese is probably a full time edge in the NFL, at
Yeah.
least in my opinion, he should be. And Sonny Styles was a former safety that can cover, run downhill, hit, and he's like 6'4", 240. So like
Mhm.
they're different players. They're both studs. Ohio State's just stacked.
Always defensively, it's crazy.
Yep. So, Drew, you predicted it. Reese
Mhm.
dropped. So, what the simulator does, okay, so if the Saints are picking here and you're doing a first round challenge, the 4 players or the 4 picks immediately before, Caleb Downs is who was taken the first time, Makai Lemon the second time, Peter Woods the third time, Sonny Styles the fourth time. The simulator makes sure that you can't pick them. Well, that being said, well, Ruben Bain got picked, but Arvell Reese is sitting there. So
Mhm.
is that the pick at 7 if it was that scenario?
I mean, yeah, as Hank kind of alluded to, Arvil Reese and Sonny Styles just play different positions at linebacker, different things they do well. But the Saints need them both. The Saints need
Mhm.
someone who can rush the passer like that. They need someone who can cover like that. Arvil Reese gives you a little bit of both, but I mean, he'd be a fantastic addition. Demario Davis isn't getting any younger. He's still such an elite player for his age and so good for the defense, but it's time they need to invest more. They got Danny Stutzman in last year's draft. Outstanding run defender, but he needs to improve in the pass game. So
Mhm.
I think any one of those 2 linebackers would be amazing to pair with, I guess, Pete Werner, who even some fans went off the roster because his play's been very inconsistent. So I think linebacker is a very underrated need that the Saints definitely should address.
Mhm.
Okay. So anytime you see an A+ grade, that means the simulator would have taken the player in that exact situation. So anytime you get an A+ grade, other simulator users will mock draft against the A+ grades. Okay, all the players moved up the board, but if the mock draft, for example, were to go the exact way it did the third time we did it, Peter Woods would be the Saints pick. That's the way to interpret that. When I went to college, we always had a saying that grades didn't matter. As long as you pass, your grade doesn't matter. So I added grades to the simulator, but just because the grades are there doesn't mean I think that they're important. Okay, so I'm going to say let's do a Vikings second round challenge. Okay, so second round challenge, I have the Vikings picked. This is 10 2-round Vikings drafts. And let's make this Project Kenyon Sadiq. So we'll be able to demonstrate getting Sadiq to the top of the draft board. So right now he is the 19th overall player on the board. And that was a player that Hank had suggested could be a sleeper for the Vikings. So we will pick Sadiq in round 1. And then what positions should the Saints be looking at, or Saints, should the Vikings be looking at in round 2? Is it corner, safety, and possibly linebacker, Hank?
Yeah, I'd say those are definitely the big 3 for them. Maybe running back, but
Yeah,
I think definitely defensive back would be my priority.
good. And Hank, you said you have Chris Johnson almost in round 1 right now.
Mhm.
So is he your favorite corner out of Julian Neal, Chris Johnson, Cisse, and then I don't know who else you would have a round 2 grade on?
Yeah, he would be my favorite. My favorite would actually be Xavier Scott in round 2 for sure. Even though he had the injury, I'd still want to take a chance on him. But it would be Chris Johnson or Xavier Scott.
Okay. So I'll pick Chris Johnson here. Question, Drew, how high do you have Chris Johnson graded right now?
I mean, I have him really highly graded because his tape is really good. He's got good measurables. I just think the Senior Bowl is going to be so big for his evaluation because it's going to happen with every corner. Happen with Quinyon Mitchell. Happen with all those small schools where people kind of question the level of competition always with them, and they always or normally most of the time go to the Senior Bowl and absolutely show out. So I think Chris Johnson, he's already pretty high on mine. I have him right now as a second round pick, but I definitely think he could get into those first round conversations with a good performance.
Okay. Okay, so we're at the next round 2 pick for the Vikings. So I took Sadiq again in round 1. What the simulator does is it takes the player that we picked and the simulator makes sure that player is off the board 10 picks before you pick. Okay. So then whoever falls to pick 43 falls. So if Chris Johnson's off the board, Drew, do you have any other corners with a top 50 grade that should be discussed?
I mean, I'd have Keith Abney, but I'm kind of thrilled the Saints keep sniping him at 41. I would love if they keep doing that. But I think the only other one I need to watch more of his film because I haven't watched a ton of him, but I think Brandon Cisse. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and for what I have seen, it's been pretty good. So I think he's definitely in conversation for top 50 pick.
So it's funny. So Owen, 10 out of 10. So Hank is suggesting that the Vikings might be looking at tight end early. So that's interesting, but it's Owen, it's awesome to see you stop by. You can catch Owen podcasting every Tuesday night and Wednesday night. Hank, what other corners would you have inside of your top 50 that you would consider? Like, is Cisse graded that high for you?
Yeah, I think it would be Cisse, Xavier Scott. I really like Charles Demings from Stephen F. Austin. I think he's a stud as well. I think Will Lee is in there. And that D'Angelo Pons would be in there as well, and probably Sicario Davis. But yeah, there's a few names definitely.
Okay, well, and let's. I didn't realize you had that many corners graded that high. So, Drew, where are you in Sicario Davis?
I want to say something before I forget of D'Angelo Pons. Oh, I love Pons. He's just a dog. Like I don't care about the size. He's going to be an impact player wherever he goes.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys both like Pounds at pick 43?
I'd do it. Just the size. If he was 5'10", 190, everyone would be all over him. He just happens to be 5 foot, probably 8 at the combine.
So one bad thing, but if he, like as you just said, if he was taller, teams would be all over. They would love him. Like he'd be such a highly talked about player.
He does everything right. The one bad thing about him is something he can't control.
Yeah.
Okay. So for this round one, Sadiq is off the board. So is Peter Woods. So out of the players, McCoy, Love, Styles. Is there a preference for who we do for the Vikings in round one?
I just do McCoy. That'd be my pick personally.
Okay, so we get the corner in round one. Are there safeties you like in the top 50?
Yeah. I think the safety class has good depth. I don't think it has too many top guys. I would say if like Dylan Thieneman would probably still be there for me, although I'm more thinking he's probably going to go back to school for another year. But I would be all over Emmanuel McNeil-Warren here. I think he's a stud.
So Thieneman went off the board early, but you said Emmanuel McNeil-Warren?
Yeah.
So, Drew, do you have Warren graded as a top 50 player?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. If Hank didn't say him, I was about to ask him about him because he's such a good player. Toledo's always producing a defensive stud. They had Darius Alexander last year. They had Quinion Mitchell. I mean, they've got a good pipeline going in.
Yeah.
McNeil-Warren's the next great one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, size, range, just everything you want in a safety. People will question his competition level, but it doesn't bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
So this time Thieneman dropped. So I picked McCoy for round one. And what the simulator does is it makes sure that Chris Johnson, Brandon Cisse, D'Angelo Pons, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who were the first 4 second-round picks that we've done, are off the board before the Vikings' second-round pick. If Thieneman drops to 43, is that a pretty good pick for the Vikings? Or is there a player that you think that would be better than Thieneman at 43?
Yeah, I think Thieneman would be a pretty good pick. I mean, it depends on who's there. It depends on like what wide receivers are there, what running backs are there.
So
like wide receiver.
What wide receivers do you like at 43?
I mean, I'd have to see.
So Concepcion is still there.
Yeah, I don't know. He's pretty low. I would definitely take him for sure.
Okay. Okay.
I would be all over Chris Bell if he didn't tear his ACL, but that sadly he did.
Such a heartbreaking injury. I
So
think
bad.
everyone has fallen in love with him.
Yeah, I had him like wide receiver 3, and I was so ready for him to go like top 25, but it just sucks.
Hmm.
Okay. So this time I did Sadiq in round 1. Is there a player that you think could be better than Keith Abney available at pick 43?
I mean,
You had mentioned something about wide receivers. Let's see what other wide receivers are here.
probably not another wide receiver that would make sense. The only thing I would be interested in is maybe like check out the running backs.
How
But
high are you on Omar Cooper Jr. at pick 43 for the Vikings?
I'm more early day 3 on Omar Cooper Jr.
Got
than
it.
43.
What about Coleman or Emmett Johnson or Jadarian Price or Katron Allen?
I would go in this, like if this was the board, I would go with Jadarian Price personally. I
Would
think
you go with Price over Abney?
no, I'd go with
Okay.
Abney. But in terms of running backs, I'd go Price.
Okay. So we'll do Abney on this one. So the reason I asked it specifically, would you take him over Abney? The simulator algorithm will lower anybody that was ranked higher,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you pick somebody that's further down, it's going to push everybody that was ranked higher than them down a little bit.
Okay.
So that was why I phrased it the way that I did. Okay, so we'll take Sadiq again, and Sadiq is already at the top of the board for the Vikings. So that means any other user of the simulator is now mock drafting against Sadiq round 1 to the Vikings. So at pick 43, Caleb Banks has dropped. What other players should the Vikings be looking at 43 if Johnson, Cisse, Pons are off the board? If McNeil, Warren, Concepcion, and Abney are off the board, what should the Vikings do in round 2?
Yeah, I would look personally, probably Xavier Scott, probably running back, maybe an edge rusher just for rotation purposes because you can never have enough edge rushers. But I mean, I
If
don't quite see a
Cassius
name.
Howell is there in round 2, would you take him?
No, I don't. I'm very, very worried about his measurements. I'm very worried about his measurements.
Okay.
Um,
What about Anthony Hill?
yeah, I would. He's probably like right in this range for me. I'm shocked he declared, but since he declared, he's probably right. He's probably on my board, probably around 50. So 43 wouldn't be bad.
Does he fit in need for the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean, linebacker you can always use. You can always rotate them, and the linebacking room could definitely use a young guy in there.
Okay. So Drew, where are you on Anthony Hill as far as where he is on your board?
I would say he's right around there, maybe a bit higher, because I mean there are certain schemes, especially with linebackers, that I trust more. I trust the Texas game, and I do think he's got a lot of the requirements I'd want to see out of a star linebacker. I mean, there's obviously still some question marks that push him down, but I would like him at around this 40 range, maybe a little bit higher. I could see him possibly sneaking into the background of the first. I could see some teams falling in love with him, but yeah, I think this is around the right range for him.
Yeah.
Okay. So I took Sadiq in round 1. Chris Johnson, Brandon Cisse, D'Angelo Pons are off the board. McNeil, Warren, Casey Concepcion, Abney, and Hill are off the board. What would the Vikings do in round 2? Like Drew, any thoughts on maybe players that you like in your top 50 that maybe you want to bounce off of Hank to see if he hasn't graded the same place?
I mean, from what I've heard I'll go running. Like I'd say running back probably. One of the running backs I really like is Emmett Johnson. You said you had Jadarian Price a little bit higher, but I do like Jadarian Price, but I have Johnson graded a little bit higher. Like, what are your thoughts on the two?
Yeah, I think I just have Price higher because the way that they complement each other at Notre Dame, Price and Love, just stands out. And I think that Price is just getting shadowed too much. I do like Johnson. Um, he just whenever I watch him, he looks slow, but he's outrunning people, which I don't really get. But especially on film, he just doesn't really look like he has that second gear. He just feels a little bit too Jordan Mason-y. If you're already gonna have Jordan Mason, I don't know if we'd want Jordan Mason 2.0. So I think if you went running back, you want a little bit more of a home run guy, which to me, out of like the top five that I can see there would be Price. Um, maybe Nick Singleton, but I'm also not the highest Nick Singleton guy in the world. But I could be convinced, especially if Mason takes a smaller role next year or isn't on the team for some reason.
So I have a question, Hank. Did Nick Singleton make your top 20?
Running backs like in
Yeah.
I think he is going to make it just because some guys got injured and some guys aren't going to
Yeah.
declare. But he's going to
So I
sneak in.
remember doing running backs with Hank in the summer, and Singleton wasn't even in his top 20. So, so anyway, I was just having a flashback. That was
I mean,
just
that take what didn't go bad at all this year. I mean, he's
No,
he's
he's been
hasn't
disappointing.
Yeah.
okay. So for the 9th mock, we're doing McCoy in round 1. And the simulator makes sure that Johnson, Cisse, Pons, McNeil, Warren, Concepcion, Abney, Hill, Price are off the board. Thoughts on where you would look at the board to try to find a player in your top 50 for the Vikings to take at 43? And Drew or Hank, feel free to make suggestions.
I would say I mean, personally, if he declares, I don't see him not being a first round pick, and that's Nick Harbor, but I don't think he's going to declare. I just think that his traits and his tools and his size, no NFL GM is going to look at that and think we can't make this guy into Calvin Johnson. So I would personally love to be the team that takes the chance on Nick Harbor. Just because if it works out, you have a stud, and at absolute worst, you have a very solid deep threat who runs very fast and has gotten better at catching the football every single year.
Drew, where are you on Harbor right now?
I mean, you talk about a fun player, and Harbor kind of just goes into mind. And I do completely agree with Hank. If he does declare, there's going to be a ton of analysts saying he shouldn't even be like a top 5 round, 5th round, like top 5 round picks. I don't know how I'm saying it awfully, but I think there's just you're not telling me there's 32 GMs out there. One of them is going to fall in love with that and take him in the back of the first, because I just think with the skill set, world-class speed, he was on the South Carolina track team with his jumping and strength. I think it's just a perfect mixture for what could be a great receiver.
Yeah,
Okay.
and people forget that he's only been a wide receiver for 3 years. He was recruited as an edge rusher and a tight end. So he is very new to this position, and South Carolina is a dumpster fire. So at worst, I think he should transfer. Yeah.
I hate South Carolina being bad. I'm a big Lenore Sellers guy. He's my
I
favorite
was
player in college
so
football.
upset. He was like my 3rd overall player on my board over the summer.
Oh yeah.
But and now he wants to go back, which I think he would be better off just declaring than going back to South Carolina. But
I have his South Carolina jersey. I hope he gets it next year. I really do, because if everything goes right, he could be a generational.
Yeah, I'm just worried that they blew too much of the budget on bringing him back, and now they're not going to be able to bring in guys around him.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's took a little bit pay cut because he's so loyal, but probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess there's a couple of guys in the chat. So we're getting one suggestion for Tiernan to the Vikings. Owen likes Jennings Dunker. I'm curious, Hank, where are you on Dunker right now?
I am not a big Dunker guy at all. I like him as a guard in very certain schemes. Like I'd love him in Miami as a guard, but it's very specific situations for me in Dunker. I wasn't a fan over the summer. His film against Ohio State last year wasn't great. He has improved for me, but I'm still like day 3 on him.
Okay. Where are you on Taft, Drew?
I mean, I want to talk about Jennings Dunker quick because I'm kind of on the opposite spectrum of Hank. I really like Jennings Dunker. Yeah, he's very limited athletically. Like you're never gonna see him win that way, but I think he's just strong. He's a mauler. He's just got that mentality I like to see. The Iowa program's constantly been churning out good offensive linemen, and I just think he's another great one. Plus, his personality is just one of the best in college
Yeah,
football.
and his mullet is great. So.
You can't go wrong with a mullet.
You can't
like,
go wrong with it.
I'm a big Dunker guy. Like I have him early day too.
Yeah, I think once I get back to him, I'll like him more.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think for me, he's a guard that would fit very well in certain systems, but I don't think that's necessarily the Viking system.
Mm-hmm.
Who are your guards that would be scheme fits for the Vikings, Hank, in any round?
I would like Kobe Baines out of Kansas. I think he'd be sick. I like Jaden Roberts out of Alabama. I think he'd be a good scheme fit. Those are like the two that jump out looking at my board.
Okay, where are either of you on Michael Taft, the safety from Texas?
I'm probably like top 150-ish. Like probably early day 3. Okay. So he'll probably sneak in day 2, but
that's gonna put tears into Owen. Okay, so Owen asked a question: what kind of blocking scheme does Minnesota run?
I mean, the thing with I'll talk about Dunker in like terms of scheme. Dunker for me needs to fit in like a wide zone scheme. And I actually do like him as an athlete. But I think in a scheme where you can get Dunker in space and just use that mentality and have him brawl through linebackers and pull and clear a path for running back, that's necessarily what I like with Dunker. When you look at the Viking scheme, it's a lot of between the tackles work for Mason. There's not a lot of, pulling. Sometimes they pull for Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones probably isn't going to be on the team next year. So unless they draft a guy who can win East-West, there's just no reason to take a guy that I believe is primarily going to be used in a scheme that works East to West.
So Hank or Drew, any thoughts on Randy's comment here?
I mean, I can see that. And I do feel like some of the tackle guard flexibility is important. And one of the guys I really like for that is Caleb Tiernan. Mm-hmm. He's only played tackle, but a lot of people translate him to guard. And I think he's someone that could start out in the league by playing tackle. I'm not sure on how he'd fit in Minnesota's scheme. I'm not a big Minnesota guy. Don't know a ton about them, but I feel like he's someone that could offer some impact in both those areas.
Yeah, I think.
Give me a second. So, Owen, remind me in the chat, you had a first-round grade on Tiernan, right? Where do you guys have Tiernan graded? Drew, I know that you were taking him at the top of round 2 for the Saints, so I know that you were pretty high on him.
Yeah, I'm a big Tiernan fan.
Hank, how about you? What do you have Tiernan graded?
I like Tiernan. There's not a great track record for very tall offensive linemen with not so long arms. It's just kind of a weird build, especially to translate into guard, but he is a very good football player. So he would be a guy that I would trust to make the transition inside, which is where I'd personally play him, I think.
Okay, so if we're looking at the board here, and this is the 10th and final mock, Dylan Thieneman's here, CJ Allen's here, Amari Washington, Caleb Tiernan, Dominique Orange, Jonah Coleman. Are there other players we should be looking at for the Vikings?
I think I would honestly, I think Christian Miller out of Georgia is just way too good to be at pick 43. So just as purely BPA, I'd go Christian Miller.
How do you feel about CJ Allen? That's one. When we did the Saints
he's
one,
right
he was
there.
constantly in conversation.
Yeah, no, I would also love CJ Allen. I think he's like 2 spots below.
Okay.
Christian Miller for me on my board. Both are studs, though. I wouldn't complain with either.
Okay, I love it. Okay, so a couple of observations to make. Sadiq started as a B because he was the 10th player. He moved up to an A. So you get the A grade if you select somebody that's in the top 8. And then if you look a little bit further down, Sadiq became an A+ because he was the top player on the board. So when you see the A plus, that was the top player on the board. So even as I was picking players, their grade changed from one mock to the next as they moved up the board. So you guys just talked about 10 second round options at a variety of positions. Hank, were we gentle enough with covering the Vikings for you?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. So, Drew, why don't we do a second round challenge for the Saints? And again, we'll get like Hank's take on the grades of some of the players that you like for the Saints in round 2 as well. So, Drew, do you want to remind everybody what your round 2 position targets will be?
Yeah, I mean, for the Saints, I mean, obviously the round position in round 1 they draft won't be, and then quarterback won't be. Other than that, I don't think they stick running back round 2. A lot of people may differ with that for me because Kamara's getting older. Kendra Miller's been injured every year, but I'm such a big Devin Neal guy. Yeah, I may be biased because he's a KU great, but I mean, I think he's been very productive when he's given the opportunity, and I just don't think the Saints need to look running back that early. In the later rounds, they could, but so I think anyone but quarterback, whoever they select in the first round, and running back would be options.
Okay, so it's 7th overall. You like Caleb Downs?
That's perfect for me. I love Caleb Downs.
Okay, and what's your who do you think is going to be BPA? Is it Keith Abney?
I love Keith Abney, but you know my thoughts on Zion Young. Obviously, with the DUI, it's a big thing right now, and that's got to check out first. We have to make sure he's good off the field. But when he's on the field, Zion Young's my edge 2, just behind Ruben Bain. First round graded player for me. I love Zion Young's tape. I think he can impact you in the run game. He can do the pass game. He can win in 3 different ways with speed, power, technique, and I think Zion Young's going to be an outstanding player, and I would love him at this selection.
Okay, so Hank, I don't know if you have heard Drew's Zion Young propaganda.
The propaganda is in full effect.
Where are you on Zion Young, Hank?
Yeah, I really like Zion Young. He's probably top 50 for me. Probably like, I don't know what edge ranking he'd be. He'd probably come in at like in between like 5 and 8 if I had to guess. But Zion Young he's a good player. I will say though, when the report came out that he got a DUI, I was not the slightest bit shocked at all. He definitely has some off the field stuff, but at absolute worst, Zion Young is one of the best, if not the best, edge rusher against the run in this draft. So you're getting a very high floor player. So I do like it for the Saints.
I just need to make sure he's off the field. That's the biggest concern. But if he clears that up, we're golden.
I agree.
Okay, so Downs is off the board for round 1, Drew. Maui Noah, Mendoza, Bain, Moore, Reese, Downs are the picks.
That's an awful first ones for the Saints. That's a lot of the top players. But, I mean, I still think Peter Woods or Sonny Styles would be my selection here. I don't really have a preference over those two. I think they both fill a big need. Let's get Sonny Styles up a little bit more on the Saints ranking.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll go with that.
You and me think alike. Yeah, so let's do Sonny Styles to the Saints at 7th overall. Okay, so if they pick Sonny Styles in round 1, what are you thinking in round 2?
I mean, he's at the top of the board. He was my second best available last time, and I think Keith Abney is just the answer here. The Saints, they have a good amount of young cornerbacks. They have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's been playing really well this year. It's kind of been a roller coaster, but the past couple games he's played great. So he's going to be their cornerback 1. Then you have Quincy Riley out of Louisville last year. He's had some good moments this year, and you've got Alante Taylor. You've got just some young players who have shown some ability, but still need some development. So I do think adding another player like Abney in that group who's got such good movement skills, can be an amazing man cornerback, can play well in zone, I think it'd be a great pick here.
Okay. So is Nick Harbor graded higher than Keith Abney?
For me right now, no.
Okay.
I do like Nick Harbor and a lot, and I could see the Saints. I mean, the Saints have fallen in love with just athletic freaks before. There's no other reason they would have picked Marcus Davenport or Peyton Turner that high. So, I mean, I could see them really liking what they see in Harbor and going with him.
Okay. Are there any tackles? Like, are any of these tackles in your top 50 that they would be either in the same tier or higher than Abney?
Max Ionanko his Arizona State teammate, is definitely a top 50 player for me. I don't think the Saints would select him because he is a tackle through and through. And I don't think the Saints would select a tackle. He's one of the ones I forgot to mention, a tackle. But I think they'd need to go with someone on the interior. And Ihan Anchor is just a pure
Got
tackle,
it.
but he's a star player who would, if the Saints didn't have their franchise tackles, would love that here.
So, and Hank, I'm curious, where do you have Ihenacor?
Yeah, probably OT2, like true
Okay.
offensive tackle, probably OT2.
So Owen and I had a conversation because we did a draft a team, and I made Ihenacor the first tackle off the board. And Owen was lower on Ihenacor than both of you just stated. What should Owen look for if he rewatches Ihenacor that you guys have him that high? Like, is there a game that you would suggest he watch to see what you guys see?
I don't necessarily have a game, but what kind of keeps coming to mind for him is that I have to look up my notes to see if I can find the exact time. But he is still so new to football. I mean, he's developed so quickly and already has pretty decent technique combined with amazing movement skills that I trust his ability to continue to develop and turn into a star player at the next level. Trying to find where I have him on my notes. Once again, my notes
Yeah,
are
so
so scattered.
and there was a tweet
Okay.
about this earlier. So
Mhm.
if memory serves me correctly, he's only
I
been
got it.
playing football for like 6 years.
He's a former JUCO player. His high school didn't even have a football team, so he started playing football while in college. He was born and raised in Nigeria until 13. He has a soccer and a basketball background, so he's kind of got that natural smooth mover. But I mean, he's been playing football for since college, so he's still an extremely young player who's just developing and continuing to get better.
And then Hank, how about you? Anything you want to add on Ihenacor for Owen?
No, Drew just kind of said it all, that he's very new to the position. He's very new to football in general, and he's very good, which is kind of just shocking for a guy who just a few years ago was playing JUCO and now he's playing at Arizona State and he's doing a great job. So I think that there's a lot more of potential with, and I'm going to throw out a third pronunciation for his name, Ian Atchor, to just
Yeah, I think you're
to
right.
find.
I think
I
Ian
know how to
Atchor
pronounce
is
it.
better than what I said. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so we were back. Okay, we're going to take Keith
I
Abney
think
this
Abner,
time.
yeah.
So that was Sonny Styles and Keith Abney to the Saints. Okay, and we will take Sonny Styles again in round one. Okay, what other players or positions are you looking at for the Saints in round two at 41st overall?
I think this would be a really good spot to get a wide receiver or maybe a tight end just to give Tyler Shuck something else because they kind of gutted out their wide receiver core this year. They came into the season with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks as their top three, and now only one of them still on the roster. So I definitely think getting a receiver would be a good play here.
Okay. And then Hank, who are your best wide receivers that would be available right now?
Now, me personally, I just want to throw out the name Chris Bell because, in my opinion, when David Ojabo tore his Achilles a few years ago during the process, and he was like a few weeks out from the draft, he still went at pick 45. I think Chris Bell is probably a tier or two better than Ojabo as a prospect. So I don't think it's unrealistic to say that Chris Bell could go very early second round. And I think even with an ACL tear, which sucks because he's a phenomenal athlete, so you got to really hope it doesn't impact his athleticism. I still think that Chris Bell would be a very good choice for the Saints. I still think Bell has a lot more to offer than just pure speed. And I don't think it's unrealistic at all to say that he would be in play at 41. Because if Ojabo can go at 45 with an Achilles tear, which I think is worse than an ACL tear, but we're just comparing season-ending injuries now. It's just I think Chris Bell would definitely be in play for the Saints. It is scary because of the injury, but if he comes back at 100%, which a lot of players have with their ACL, especially at his age, he has plenty of time to rehab it. I think that Chris Bell would be a good pickup for the Saints, who aren't necessarily in a win now mode. It would suck because you don't get that immediate weapon for Shuck, but you would also get hopefully a guy who is top 15 on my board probably mid-season, if I had to guess. So he would come back during the season for sure.
And Drew, any thoughts on Chris Bell at 41 overall?
I love Chris Bell, and I think he'd be a spectacular prospect, and he'd fit so well in the Saints scheme. But I don't see them selecting him just because I'm perfectly fine with the selection there. But yeah, the Saints aren't in a win now mode. But the thing is, next year for Tyler Shuck is such a big year in evaluation because they need to know if they have to get a quarterback in the 2027 draft. So I think Kellen Moore would rather get someone like a Jeremy Bernard or someone like that who could impact the game in so many spots, so they could fully evaluate what they have in Tyler Shuck, so they'd know what they have, what they need next season, instead of getting half a year out of Chris Bell. So although I do like Chris Bell and I have him higher than like the Jeremy Bernards or stuff like that on my board, I do think they would shy away from him just because Tyler Shuck needs all the weapons he can get and a career year,
which makes total sense. I think it like you said, it's very important that Shuck gets all the help he can get. And as much as I love Bell, I also really like Jeremy Bernard. So I wouldn't hate it at all if they picked up Bernard.
Okay. Would you take Bailey over Bernard?
I mean, I personally would take David Bailey. We had an edge big board yesterday, and it was clear I'm not as high on David Bailey as a lot of other people are. I just don't trust his run defense and all that. I believe he was I pull it up, but he was my edge maybe 6. So I'm definitely not as high on him. But at pick 41, in the first round, it's tough to pick a DPR. Someone who could be in the range of that, where if an offensive lineman gets their hands on him in the run game, he's over. But at pick 41, I'd feel a lot better about getting someone who's that impactful in the pass rush game and who maybe can only not play every single down. But I would feel comfortable here about selecting David Bailey, and I probably would select him over Jeremy Bernard.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, Hank, where are you on Bailey as far as where he is on your overall board?
Yeah, I think Bailey graded out at like round 3 for me, but that's only because he just can't defend the run. I think when his pass rush, he got like a 9.8 out of 10. And every when a team drafts him round 1 or 2, I can look at my grade and be like, well, this is why he went, because he's a stud pass rusher. I will say though, people are kind of forgetting that he assaulted a cameraman and
he stomped on a player's head.
Stomped on a player's head. There's genuine character concerns with this guy. So I don't think he's going round 1 at all. Probably day 2. I would be shocked if he didn't go at day 2, but I think he's closer to round 3 than top 20 than people think, because you can't just assault a cameraman and not have it get brought up closer to April. So that will eventually come back up probably in about February.
I think it's more anger issues with him is because the NC State game, they were getting blown out like 59-21 there. And so, I mean, if you're on the Saints, you have to, the Saints are going to be bad, and the Saints have lost in some heartbreaking fashions. You as a Vikings fan knows that play hurt. I missed a week of school for that. If you got anger issues, Saints might not be the spot for you, but
okay. So Zion Young, Keith Abney, Chris Bell, David Bailey are off the board before the Saints' second round pick. Who's the next best available player?
One player I have rated really highly is Amari Washington, the Oregon defensive tackle. I have him as my defensive tackle 2 right now. I just absolutely love what he can bring to you athletically. Someone that big should not be able to move as well as he does. It's kind of staggering. I believe he was, if my memory is serving me right, he was like number 4 on Feldman's freak list this year. And he's just such a good athlete that I think he's going to be a highly impactful player and one that I would trust the Saints picking here. I'm trying to see if I can find my notes for exactly what he is.
So, Hank, where are you on Washington right now?
Yeah, I really like Amari Washington. He's probably my defensive interior 4, I think. So I'd have no problem with the Saints going Amari Washington.
Oh, and out of curiosity, are the 3 higher McDonald, Banks, and Woods?
No.
No, wait, you have Santana Hopper higher too.
Yeah, but I'm starting to grade him as an edge because he's just not going to play interior. I think the 3 I'd have higher are Woods, Miller, and Banks.
Okay. I'm a little bit lower on McDonald's, kind of like you. Yeah. I like him, but I don't know if I'd select him over the Amari Washington.
He's just, I mean, he's going to stuff the run, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's all he's going to do. Yeah. And if you're especially like the Saints, I don't see that being the number 1 priority right now.
Okay, so we got Caleb Downs in round 1 again. The simulator makes sure that Zion Young, Keith Abney, Chris Bell, David Bailey, Amari Washington are off the board before the Saints pick. Thoughts on best available for the Saints?
For me, I've kind of teased Jeremy Bernard, but I think I'm gonna have to go away with him one more time because Caleb Tiernan, I talked about him. I think he would be a great fit at guard. I mean, both guards, the Saints have a big need at. Cesar Ruiz, they just like in the first round a couple years ago. He really hasn't panned out. He's had some good seasons, but never great. And the starting left guard is Dylan Radums right now because they traded Trevor Penning. So that's another area where they could 100% use an upgrade. So I think Caleb Tiernan would be a good player. As you kind of alluded to earlier, Hank, his measurables are kind of questionable for tackle. So he could move into guard, and I think the Saints could take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And where are you on Tiernan, Hank?
Yeah, I mean, I like him. It's just, like I said earlier, very awkward build. He's like 6'6", 320, but he has like 32-inch arms. So that build in the NFL doesn't have a great track record. And I worry about his play at guard just because of his height, but he's a good football player at the end of the day, and good football players will work out. So I think if anyone with his build could do it at guard, it'd probably be him, just because, I mean, he's so good for Northwestern. He plays well against Oregon. He plays well against Ohio State. So there's really not much dislike with him.
And about Tiernan's so tall to play guard, normally that'd be a big concern, but Tyler Shuck is a tall quarterback. He's 6'5". So I'd be a lot more concerned if I had a Bryce Young or if I had a Kyler Murray or someone like that who's maybe 5'10" on a good day.
Mhm.
While I feel a lot more comfortable having a 6'5" quarterback stand behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, so 41st overall, I think I took Sonny Styles in round 1.
Perfect. I want to look at some wide receivers. I think that'd be an area that I really like, kind of this spot. I mean, I've said Jeremy, I want to see the rest. I'm not a Chris Brazzell guy. I'm just not a fan. There's still some receivers I need to watch that could go ahead of him. But right now, he's, I think, my wide receiver 12. So he's pretty far, but I think he's going to end up around 15. So I'm not certain. Ian Strong was a guy I talked about. Nick Harbor is another one. Zachariah Branch is another guy. Those three, I mean, Ian Strong, just a complete contested catch guy. Zachariah Branch, he's just twitchy, and I feel like that'd be good. While, yep, right there. That's what kind of got my mind on him, but Zachariah Branch could fit really well. And then Nick Harbor, just the all-around deep threat that the Saints have.
So you're disappointing me. I need Branch to fall to Buffalo. You're disappointing me. But Zachariah Branch, where do you have him graded, Hank?
Yeah, he's like at the very top of round 3. Like Drew said, super twitchy. I wouldn't mind him at all at pick 40 just because I don't have too many second-round grades this year. But just super twitchy, can create in space, takes screens 40 yards for touchdowns. So he's a very creative player, and he's very consistent. And I do like the steps that he's taken at Georgia after transferring from USC.
Okay, so we'll do Sonny Styles in round 1 again. We are doing the 8th of 10 mocks and a second-round challenge. And again, the simulator will make sure that Zion Young, Keith Abney, Chris Bell, David Bailey, Amari Washington, Caleb Tiernan, and Zachariah Branch are off the board before the Saints pick. Caleb Banks has dropped to round 2. Cassius Howell is still there.
Yeah, I'd say edge would be the position I'd want to look at here because, I mean, the Saints have Chase Young. Chase Young has played amazing after getting like a 3-year, $51 million contract extension this offseason. So I love what he is, but after that, it kind of gets dicey. Carl Granderson is a great edge, but he's more of that run game. He had a hot start to the year with sacks, but since has really cooled off. Then Cam Jordan, as much as I love him, he's just not the same player he was 5 years ago. He's just getting older, and I don't know how much longer he has. And I think a guy I saw.
Yeah, I think I know the guy you're going to go to. I was going to ask.
There's a couple guys.
Who do you think is the best edge available for you right now?
My highest graded edge would be Malachi Lawrence from UCF. So that would definitely be who I would go. 6'4", 250, 35-inch arms, and has the fastest hands in the draft by far. Like, his hand speed is just ridiculous for how big he is. He has a deep pass rush bag. He's gotten better against the run every year that he's played. in my opinion, there isn't a whole lot to dislike about Malachi Lawrence, besides the fact that sometimes his hand placement can be a bit off. But when you have hands as fast as his, I don't really care. I don't know. It doesn't really affect me. So that'd be who I'd go with. But there's a lot of names that I'd be okay with here as well.
Malachi Lawrence was one of the first guys I watched, so I haven't seen him in a while. I kind of just forgot to include him on my big board. Like he was a guy I realized when the other two were talking and that I'm like I kind of just forgot to put him on there. So he's one I want to revisit. But Anto Saka was my original one, and I think I'm gonna go with him. But another one that was really close is Akeem Mesidor, and I actually do have Akeem Mesidor one spot higher than Saka on my big board. But what sets me up as Anto Saka being the better pick here is that, as you kind of said earlier, the Saints aren't in win now mode, and a 25-year-old edge rusher who has had some injury concerns. I just feel like Saka could be better for the long term, which the Saints kind of need. And just with his pure burst, with his athleticism, I feel a lot better about that.
Yeah. The only other name that I'd throw out there is Kenyatta Jackson. But I think other than that, you've kind of hit everybody on the head.
So I was actually trying to understand this comment. So the Giants are taking who, and who?
That is, yeah, that opposing quarterbacks and the team support staff there. That would be
awful.
That would be a wild ride for them.
So just because you see, so for example, when we get to the second round, okay, where was it? So this Giants pick is there because of the algorithm. He's not there on the Giants board, but when you do a second round challenge, it replaces the Giants pick with one of the players that you've picked in the second round challenge. So Bailey is not there on the Giants board. So I just wanted to clarify that. So it took me a minute to understand what the comment was. Okay, so I think we're back to round one. Okay, we're back to round one. We'll do Sonny Styles to the Saints. This is the 9th of the 10 mocks. So we're going to see a lot of people off the board, right? So if we look, Zion Young's off the board. Keith Abney's off the board. Chris Bella's off the board. David Bailey, Amari Washington, Caleb Tiernan, Zachariah Branch, Anto Saka. If you look, there's Anto Saka, there's Zachariah Branch, and you can just keep scrolling to the left. Tiernan, it's any of the players that we took in round 2, the simulator is force picking them to be off the board before your pick because we want to see do you have the right set of scenarios? What if your team trades down a little bit? Is that board set up correctly so that you're getting a BPA that's going to help your team? So Hank, who is your best available player on the board right now?
It would definitely be Xavier Scott. Even with the injury, but that would be my number one.
Do you view him more as a nickel or a outside cornerback?
I view him as a defensive back weapon. Like he could play. I would trust him to play boundary. I think his best work comes in the slot or nickel. I think he could play safety also. Of course, a lot of people are going to question the injury history and the foot injury this year, which is completely fair. But I have to still push his agenda because he was the number one player in the class for me over summer scouting, and I absolutely hated seeing the injury. But there's just not a lot of corners that are as consistent as him. And in my opinion, the only thing you can really question is the athleticism. And other than that, I think he's above average at everything else. Another guy I'd like to throw out though is probably Oscar Delp at tight end. I like Juwan Johnson more than a lot of people. I think he gets way too much hate. A lot of people call him one of the worst tight ends in the league. I don't personally think so, but I think Oscar Delp would just be an upgrade. He just doesn't get the ball enough at Georgia. And when he gets the ball at Georgia, he makes plays, and he is one of the best blockers in this class. He could arguably be one of the better ones, but it's probably Kitzelman. But Oscar Delp is definitely probably a top 5 to top 3 blocker in this class. He has great speed at tight end, when he actually gets the ball at Georgia, good things happen. I mean, I think it was the clip this year. What was it against Kentucky where he catches the ball and he goes from like 0 to 22 miles an hour in like 3 seconds and he just dusts everyone. He just doesn't get the ball. And I don't know why he doesn't get the ball, but he needs to get the ball more. I think it'd be a great weapon that isn't at the wide receiver position.
And Drew, how high do you have Delp graded to see in your top 50?
Somehow I've watched a good amount of tight ends, but somehow Delp has slipped my mind, and I still
Okay.
have not gotten eyes on. So for a tight end, I think is a huge need for the Saints. Juwan Johnson, I really like, but it's been every offseason for probably the past 3 or 4 years. Saints and the Saints fans have been saying like, this is going to be the Juwan Johnson breakout year. This is going to be the year where he's a great player because he always starts out slow, and in the last couple weeks he always gets really hot and has a great end to the season. And it's kind of tough because he has a good receiving threat. Blocking's not great. So I do think what you're saying with Oscar Delp would make a lot of sense. Only other one in mind would be Eli Stowers, who I think I selected last week because I just do love athletically what he has. Runs in their family. Sister's a volleyball player at Texas A&M. So I do like Stowers a lot too, but I think Delp would be a great pick.
Yeah, I think Stowers, Delp. The only other name that I think is Michael Trigg, but he's just like
And
strictly wide receiver.
There it is.
Yeah, just strictly pass catching. He's not blocking anything.
So Hank, is Michael Trigg inside your top 50?
I think he's top 75, but not 50.
Okay. And have you gotten to Trigg yet, Drew?
I have. Yes. Trigg is one of the ones I've gotten to.
And where did he grade for you?
Top 100. Very kind of end of that. Like, I do love his receiving. Like, you can't argue with what you've got there. But especially for the Saints, I've kind of seen the Juwan Johnson where it's just receiving. So I think just getting someone blocking would be nice.
Yeah. Okay. So we're in the 10th and final mock. We've taken Caleb Downs in round 1. What do you like? Okay, I guess let's go position by position.
There are 3 players in my mind if we want to.
Out of the wide receivers that you see, Hank, who is Harbor your highest graded receiver out of this group?
Yeah, but he's not going to declare. Out of the guys that will declare, like I'm 100% confident it's Bernard.
Okay.
Bernard's one of the 3 options I was kind of looking at this pick. It was for the Saturday morning one. CJ Allen was there for almost every single one for the last couple we did, and just someone always kept dropping and getting him over. So it was probably 5 in a row I said I was going to pick CJ Allen, and then someone else appeared. And I think that's going to happen again. Because I told myself I was going to go CJ Allen, but TJ Parker there at edge, I think would be a great selection. I mean, he hasn't had the best year ever. At Clemson, no one has. If you look at that box score, you're saying kind of upset. And I think 4 of TJ Parker's sacks all came in one game. But there is a lot to like about Parker. I have him right now as my edge 4. Trying to once again find my notes. He's good frame, great against the run. He's strong, good laterally, can drop back into coverage if needed. He doesn't have amazing bursts, and some of the pass rush moves are questionable. But I do think if Parker's there, the Saints would take a swing on him.
Yeah. There was one more name that I saw I think makes sense. Emmanuel Pregnon out of Oregon at guard. I think would also be a top option. Yeah, top option. Yeah, at the interior offensive line. He's probably my interior line 1. So
I think he's who the Saints would have to pick because I think interior is such a big need for them. I mean, Cesar Ruiz, Dylan Radunz, they're all right, and I don't think this free agency class is particularly swell at guard. So I think Pregnon would be a really good addition here.
Yeah, he's so good, and the improvement he's had from going to USC to Oregon is just ridiculous. Him and Bear Alexander both just have improved so much this season.
So Randy, the simulator is interactive. So if people don't pick him, they drop down. So the rankings on the simulator are always temporary because basically what's going to happen now is if somebody comes in and I'm going to do a very quick mock, I'm going to do like a 5-round mock for Buffalo. And I want to look at who the Saints take and who the Vikings take. So I'm pretty much just going to take the players that are at the top of the board for Buffalo. And once I get to the fourth round pick, we'll rewind. Yep. I've probably done a few of these before.
The Saints, I already saw who they take. I mean, you can tell I've done a couple of mock drafts on here.
Yep.
It's got
It's
got
interesting that Drew's eyes can see who the Saints take. That just blows me away. Okay. So I've gotten through 3 rounds, and there's a couple things I want to impress. Okay, so let's rewind. So in round 1, the Saints took Caleb Downs. The Vikings took Sadiq. Both of those happened because of what we did on this podcast, right? Then in round 2, Saints took Zion Young.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kilgore hasn't moved off of the high spot for Minnesota, so he was taken there. And then if we look, okay, Austin Barber was not one of the players we took in the second round challenge, but Brandon Cisse was. So even though we took him in the second round of a second round challenge, he moved high enough up on the board that he was the best available player for the Vikings in round 3. Right? So we took him in round 2. The simulator ended up putting him to the Vikings in round 3. So that's going to happen until more people pick Cisse and he moves higher on the Vikings board.
Mm-hmm.
And then what have I done? Okay, so let me ask you guys a question. So Buffalo's biggest needs are wide receiver, linebacker, and safety. So those 3 are off the board. My question is edge. Hank, I know you love Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Owen liked Lawrence. I don't think Owen liked Lawrence as much as you, but you guys are in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I don't think anyone likes Lawrence as much as me. So I can't even be upset with him.
Well, no, but I mean, Newton Owen, I think, said clearly he's top 100, but he's probably closer to round 3 than round 2.
Yeah, for me, he's the number 7 player on my board.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, Drew, remind me, when we did the Edge Big Board on Sunday,
I'm looking for that right now.
One of the 3 edges that everybody had in their top 15.
I'm looking for that link right now, but for where everyone put theirs in. But I know both Brian and Jack had both of the edges insanely high. I do think it was, top. I don't know where they had him, but he was ranked really high in both theirs. I, for some reason, cannot find where they are. But
yeah, so I'm pulling up the boards right now. Okay, so let me remove this, add this. So
Brian had him at 13.
Yeah. So these were the big boards that we used on Sunday. I just pulled it up. So I was going to look where Malachi Lawrence was. So Jack Brentonall had him as the 6th overall edge.
It was 13. I thought Brian had him higher the way he talked
13th for Brian.
I forgot to put him on.
Okay.
I hadn't watched him in so long that he kind of just slipped.
These are interesting. I missed this show, so this is interesting to look at. I definitely don't have Clev Lubin that high.
So Jack had an interesting observation, Hank. He said, if you look, basically, so Drew, Brian, and Jack, who are 3 independent and effective evaluators, there's only, I think, 4 guys that were in common in the top 15.
There's only one in the top 5.
And the 4 guys were Llewellyn, Bailey.
Or I didn't have Llewellyn in the top 5. I didn't have Llewellyn.
And Lawrence, right? Because Brian is Ruben Bain as a defensive tackle, so Ruben Bain didn't even make that list.
Oh, as a defensive tackle is very interesting.
I think
haven't heard that
Keldrick
one.
Falk was only in the top 5, only one of the top 5 that made it for each of us.
Yeah,
Yep.
Just low
Good.
floor
Falk is
or
good.
high
Yeah,
floor.
high floor, which
Just
is great
designated
for
run
Hank
defender.
Eagle. Yeah,
Mhm.
so
Yep.
can't hit on that.
Yep. Well, why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Hank, do you want to let everybody know about all of your tweets and the other draft content that you make?
Yeah, it's just Hank Knows Ball on Twitter and Substack. You can find everything there, and that's it.
Drew.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Jerome Collings. I'll put out random scouting reports or just random observations at times. I have another podcast called The Dome Discussions for the New Orleans Saints, as well as I write for a New Orleans Saints site online called the Who Dat Dish.
Yep. And Randy's correcting me, and Randy, I think, was even the one in the chat that pointed it out on Sunday. So, like, I don't want to take credit for, like, it was like only 4 of the top 8 edges were common across all the boards or something. But basically, the edge boards right now feel like they're all over the place.
Yep.
There doesn't feel like there's consensus.
Outside of probably Ruben Bain, which we didn't even have a consensus on last
Yeah.
time. I don't know if there really is.
And Randy, it's great to see you stopping by, engaging in the chat. We appreciate that. Ryan Sparks, always great to see you stop by. And Owen, who is Weekly Huddle right here. You can see Owen podcast on Tuesday and Wednesday on Draft Professor. Tuesdays, he does offensive line. Wednesdays, he does defensive line with Newt. So there's an offensive line big board show tomorrow night. There is a edge big board. I believe it's actually edge and DT board on Wednesday. And Hank, you'll know that Santana Hopper was graded real high by both Newt and Owen. The ironic thing is one of them wants to list him as a defensive tackle and one wants to list him as an edge.
I don't see a world where he plays defensive tackle in the NFL just because he's 265. But I don't know where he's going to play. But he's a great player, so they'll find a spot for him.
Yep. Now, has he entered the portal yet, or we don't know that yet?
He probably won't decide anything until Tulane's out of the playoffs. So
got it. Okay. So I want to thank Drew and Hank for being here tonight. We're going to be, I believe, next week it's a wide receiver board. Is that what we decided pre-show?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So next week, Hank, and I shouldn't say wide receiver board. Hank and Drew are going to be discussing the wide receiver class and the receivers that they like. So hopefully you'll get the names of maybe 12 or 18 wide receivers and where they have them graded on their boards. So for Hank, Drew, myself, and the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow night.